In this
because they're
episode,
at the absolute end of a long value chain. There's usually about 7 layers in the value chain, and everybody makes money except the farmer. And the farmer is at the end. He has no bargaining power. He has no market knowledge. He has no leverage. Becoming a social entrepreneur, it was transformational for me. I had been thinking about it for a long time. Finally I did it as I sort of tricked myself into doing it, maybe on purpose, I don't know. But it's rewarding in many levels. When you work in a small company, you have a small number of people. You're highly dependent on each other. But I find the alignment of purpose quite motivating to everyone. The farmer is always the priority. We double the farmer's family income as the basis of the model.
yes.
So then in essence, it became our problem to figure out how to make money. And so we were probably worse than nonprofit in the first 8 years because we lost money. Eventually, we started to make some money, and we plan to make good money in the future. Because we believe the whole organization has to have that mindset. They have to be focused on making a very successful, efficient, profitable business. We have to grow. We have to attract new consumers, and we focus the farmer on the farming.
Welcome to Gut Instinct. I'm Evan. Gut Instinct is a podcast series where we interview leading scientists, entrepreneurs, and professionals on issues such as gut health, the food and healthcare sector, wellness, following your energy, and having a balanced and holistic approach to life. The Gut Instinct series is sponsored by Wellsprout. In this episode, I'm joined by social entrepreneur Richard Blossom. Richard Blossom is co-founder and CEO of Hilltribe Organics, executive director and co-founder of Perfect Earth Foods, and founder of the Wawee Valley Foundation. Before starting these companies, he spent more than 25 years in Asia in various roles including board director and chief business development officer of Monte Foods, president of Pepsi Beverages Asia Pacific, and president of PepsiCo Foods International Asia Pacific. He's a member of the Young Presidents Organization, where he has been active in their local, regional, and global leadership. Thank you very much for joining us today, Richard.
Yeah, good to see you.
All right, can I try to understand a bit about the story of how you started Hilltribe Organics?
Well, Hilltribe Organics was started more than 13 years ago, and it was kind of a reflection of my interest in social entrepreneurship. So actually the origin was that for YPO, I started a program for children of YPOers to learn about social entrepreneurship. And I was living here in Singapore. We had an academy in Singapore with a bunch of well-known social entrepreneurs. And then we had 12 young people in their mid-20s from around the world who went up to Thailand for the summer to do a project we called Catapult. And the challenge was to develop a business model that could catapult a village out of poverty. We had 3 teams of 4 each, and they spent the summer, and we had sort of consultants and people helping and advising them. We gave them some money so they could actually build a live working model, which was one of the requirements. And they had a great summer and came up with 3 really interesting projects. At the end of the summer, we had a Shark Tank thing and evaluated the projects, announced a winner, and they had a great summer experience and then went home. 2 of those people actually got married. But about a month afterwards, I started to think about this amazing experience we had given these young people, and that involved working with villages and farmers and building a pilot project that in reality nobody was going to come back to oversee. And while it was theoretically possible that the villagers would take those projects forward, in reality, I realized that this was a project that benefited a few at the expense of quite a few. But I realized that I probably had done it more for myself in the end. I was really interested in the topic. So I took that as a sign, and I said, I will stop this program, not run it again, but I will take one of these ideas and build it into a business. So I kind of backed my way into Hilltribe Organics. So then a month or so later, I talked to a friend of mine in Thailand, and he loved the idea and wanted to join. So there were three of us, Arvind Arula and Marcus Dietrich and myself, started Hilltribe Organics in 2012, a year after running that program in 2011, and we only really started commercially developing it in 2013. We brought more students, young people from around the world, but this time not idly.
Not just for a one-off thing anymore.
This was to be a part of the founding team. And so we had four of them. One of them stayed 4 years, became COO and learned Thai. One stayed 2 years, and two of them stayed for the initial summer. So that's how we began. And executionally, we started in the Wawee Valley in northern Thailand, north of Chiang Rai, up near the Burmese border, in a valley that was all Hilltribe people, and a valley that was dying. All the farmers were in their 70s, and the children had left long ago. They just didn't see any possibility of making a decent living. And yet it was a beautiful, and is a beautiful valley. One of the most beautiful places you'll ever see. And I thought, this is not right. It should be possible to create a business model where farmers could prosper and maintain a good living for themselves and their families. So we decided that organic agriculture was the ideal vehicle to connect poor farming communities with a source of income that could change their lives economically. And we chose organic free-range eggs as the specific vehicle. So that was the origin.
Fantastic. And you've been going for 13 years now.
We've been going for 13 years.
What keeps you motivated to keep doing this? Because it started off with this project for YPO children, but then after that, you've stayed for the long haul. What was it that kept you
Well, I've always
believing in this
been
project?
fascinated by the challenge, I guess, the problem. And with long experience, not only in consumer products, but in agriculture-related consumer products, potato chips and pineapple and things like that, I'd seen a lot of farmers and a lot of small farmers. And I think over the years, I got to know why they're poor. And small farmers are poor because they're at the absolute end of a long value chain. There's usually about 7 layers in the value chain, and everybody makes money except the farmer. And the farmer is at the end. He has no bargaining power. He has no market knowledge. He has no leverage. And unfortunately, I saw in many cases farmers trying to proactively get out of that problem,
Yeah.
actually getting in a worse situation. They would see the price of some other crop, tapioca, is really high. And they would sit around with their friends in the evening and say, tapioca price is really high. Let's get into tapioca. So they would all get into tapioca. Usually it wasn't one guy that would do it. It would be quite a few.
Yeah.
It would take them a while to get into tapioca. By the time they got into tapioca production, all of a sudden the supply of tapioca had increased and the price went down compared to the time when they wanted to get into it. And the price of the product they were in was higher than when they left.
Yeah.
And it's sort of heartbreaking because they're trying to look after their families and trying to do the right thing. So the Hilltribe Organics model was based on that insight, that if we could create a model that was market-driven, where we started with the market, as we did with HDO in the beginning, organic eggs, big market for eggs in Thailand, and it stood to reason that segmenting organic could give us a big enough business to support quite a lot of farmers. So we started.
How many farmers? Just for
we started with 4. Today we have 50 hen farmers and about 150 feed farmers.
Great.
But we started with 4. And we started with a model where they had to find a suitable piece of land that we would approve. And then their investment was to build a hen house and an enclosure and a few other sort of smaller structures on the farm. To our satisfaction, their investment then was to build the farm. And after that, we give them the hens for free and the feed for free. And we work with other farmers to grow the feed. And then we train them in organic farming, and we pay for the certification and arrange for the training to get organic certification. So their job is to look after the hens or to grow the corn or the other feed components.
And you mentioned it's a wait list of farmers still. Trying to get them.
We've constantly had a waiting list of something like 50 farmers, and that's bothered me over the years because here were farmers that saw the model, wanted to do it, and we didn't have the demand for it. So that really was the impetus for starting the Wawee Valley Foundation. So in the early years, we tried to do some development projects inside the company and just decided that was not fair to the management, who was challenged with making the business profitable. And we are a for-profit company, not a nonprofit. We're mission-driven and impact-forward. So the farmer is always the priority. We double the farmer's family income as the basis of the model.
Yes.
So then in essence, it became our problem to figure out how to make money. And so we were probably worse than nonprofit in the first 8 years because we lost money. But eventually we started to make some money, and we plan to make good money in the future, because we believe the whole organization has to have that mindset. They have to be focused on making a very successful, efficient, profitable business. We have to grow. We have to attract new consumers, and we focus the farmer on the farming. But because we still have 5,000 families or 4,000 ex-families in the valley that we haven't found an opportunity for yet, and 50 on the waiting list, we said, we need to set up an organization to develop new ideas that can drive additional demand. So the purpose of the Wawee Valley Foundation is just that, to create new projects that, when proven, can be commercialized by Hilltribe Organics.
I'd love to dive in a little bit more into both of those organizations, Perfect Earth Foods and Wawee Valley Foundation. But I think to sort of drive home the impact that Hilltribe Organics has had, I remember you shared a pretty moving story about how it's actually made a difference in the lives of these farmers. Perhaps it would be great to hear from you. How has this model actually helped to transform some of the lives of the people living in the valley?
Well, as I mentioned, they were really poor, so poor that the kids left for the city. So when we set up the model, we set an arbitrary benchmark that we need to double family income, that 5 or 10% or 20% wasn't going to cut it.
What was the income levels of the people?
So it was about $250 per month per family at that time.
Yeah.
And so we set a model that should generate at least 500, and many of them do quite a bit better than that.
Fantastic.
So we thought, kind of just on that simple level, that doubling income would change the lives. What it turned out was that, and I guess we should have thought about this right from the beginning, farmers are poor numerically, but they're particularly poor from a cash flow perspective. So the real problem in being a farmer is you don't know when your income is, how much it's going to be, or when you're going to get it. What changed their lives fundamentally was we set up a model now with eggs that they were getting effectively daily income. And so not only daily income, but twice on average what they got before, but that was infinitely more for more than half the year. So that change was so profound that they could do things like plan and do things like educate their children that they never could afford to do, because at the age of 15, for children to go further in education, there's no high school in the valley. They have to send them to a school that's like an hour and a half or 2 hours away. I mean, you can't have kids commuting 4 hours a day, so it meant having another kind of accommodation and somebody to look after them. It just wasn't possible. Once they started with Hilltribe, it became possible. So, and that was, I think, almost always their first priority. It is, before they ever thought about buying a truck or anything, they first sent their kids to school. And now they've done many other things. They have been able to afford a vehicle, but still their priority is education. So some of those children now have gone to university. And we have our first second-generation farmer. So
they decided to come back
and take over, because this is a young man, and he was probably 10 or something when his mother started. Now she wanted to retire, and he wanted to come back and take over the farm. So that was pretty gratifying.
It validates the model that previously the children were leaving, but now they see a future in this farming enterprise.
And now there's still 90% of our farmers are women, and we see them able to actually care for their children, their young children. There's a woman that is one of our newer farmers who has, I would say, a 6-month-old baby that she's able to take care of and do the job. And so we're hoping that child will become one of our future farmers.
Beautiful. So perhaps you can help us to understand a bit about these different organizations that you're leading. There's Perfect Earth Foods, Wawee Valley Foundation, and Hilltribe Organics. What's the vision here? How do they all work together?
Well, Hilltribe Organics is a full-on social enterprise driven by high impact. And while it's a for-profit business, we lost money for 9 straight years. Perfect Earth Foods, or the corporate name is Cha-Cha International, is also a sustainability-driven business and could be called a social enterprise. I don't think of it in the same way because it's not driven by social impact. Sustainability is very important. So it's a value-added producer of rice-based products. And one of my partners, Arvind Narula, is the largest organic rice producer in Thailand. So we set that company up about a year after we set up Hilltribe Organics. So Arvind was a partner in Hilltribe Organics. A year later, with another partner, Mark Castanet, we said, okay, we'll set up another company that has a global marketplace, value-added rice-based products. So we make pad thai rice noodles, rice ramen noodles, rice crackers, rice cakes. We brought chia from Peru 10 or 11 years ago, and we're the only organic producer of chia in Thailand. And that company sells all over the world. The US is the biggest market, but we sell in Europe and in Asia. And that company is now considerably bigger than Hilltribe Organics, although we believe Hilltribe Organics will ultimately rival Perfect Earth in size, but not just yet.
And how would Wawee Valley Foundation fit in? It's the piece that you mentioned.
So Wawee Valley Foundation is linked to Hilltribe Organics and is the engine to create new business diversification, business opportunities, ideally with higher sales and volume and margin potential. So fundamentally shelf-stable products that we can ship around the world, because our ability to grow Hilltribe Organics obviously is limited by the fact it's fresh produce. We do, however, plan to be here in Singapore. And last year, Singapore SFA came to audit us and approved our farms, but we're still waiting for formal government approval to export to Singapore. And we're working on a project to export to Japan. So the egg business will ultimately, become significantly larger. But the foundation is connected to I guess I call it the second vision for Hilltribe Organics, or the core vision of the Wawee Valley Foundation, which was 13 years ago, organic food for consumers in Thailand was a new idea. There basically weren't, there were some organic export-based businesses, but if you went into the supermarket 13 years ago to buy organic food in Thailand, it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big deal when we launched, and it was helpful because we were the first. So we were able to get a lot of early adoption and a lot of loyal consumers. And even though maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10 brands have come into the market over the years, we fortunately continue to be the dominant number one because we started the market, and I think we have continued to maintain really superior level of quality. Mm-hmm. But to fast forward to today, there's a lot of organic products in the market, and we know with global warming and everything we not only read about, but we see and live in today, the world has changed a lot. And so is the dialogue about sustainability and the planet and all these things. So clearly today, organic is good, but not good enough. So organic basically stops doing bad things. Regenerative organic is really where we want to go next. And regenerative organic doesn't just stop doing bad things. It actually works on a complex set of practices to actually enrich the soil and restore the soil and progressively improve not only the soil but the water and the air and all those things that end up by getting polluted by chemicals and pesticides and all those things. And we're taking it actually a step beyond that because we don't think even regenerative organic is good enough because it needs an element of circularity. So we're sort of calling it circular regenerative organic. And as you know, regenerative organic is it's many things, plants and animals and no-tilling and ground cover, agroforestry, all based on how to bring carbon out of the atmosphere and into the ground. We're adding the concept of circularity to that, and we began actually with an advantage. A lot of people start thinking about regenerative organic as crop farmers. Mm-hmm. We started as chicken farmers or egg farmers. So we already had the animal component. It was a question of then bringing the plants and the trees and the ground cover and all those things. And we started to think, we haven't really been making proper use or effective use of this stream of chicken poop that we have, natural fertilizer. Mm-hmm. We're also growing crops, so while we thought of ourselves as egg farmers, actually that's not true. We were always farming. The feed components, we were always farming, but we were kind of looking at that as a separate activity. And then we started to say, well, let's look at how we could integrate all of these things in a fully integrated circular model. So we can take the waste from corn, for instance. So the cobs can be used for biochar. The stalks and the leaves, et cetera, can go into compost. And we can create biostimulants or EM, combine those together, and that should enable us to make a really very good quality fertilizer.
Mm.
And so the circular aspect is, so we should put that fertilizer back into our farming and regenerative organic model.
Yep.
But we can also use that even before we begin by using it as fertilizer for agroforest seedlings. Because it's one thing to do agroforestry if you buy seedlings from, some producer, or maybe you get them from the government. So we're working now on how we can create sort of, super strong seedlings using this circular fertilizer that we're able to develop just by basically capturing our own waste.
Mm-hmm.
And that with some technology, et cetera, we can tailor it for each of the agroforest varieties that we're growing. So it's coffee and cacao and mulberry and moringa are the kind of the initial ones. So our idea is to use the fertilizer first to create super seedlings.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can deploy those seedlings and then use fertilizer further once they're deployed to ideally achieve higher yields than you would typically get. And while it's not proven, we also believe that we may get a higher level of nutrient density from the materials that come from those trees.
Yeah, so nothing goes to waste.
So nothing goes to waste, but by using the waste, maybe we can create something superior.
Something of even more value.
And the problem with regenerative organics, certainly in a classical farming sense, is a farmer has to shift. So if a farmer has been a reasonably successful, substantial monocrop, conventional producer of some crop, and you're talking to them about getting into regenerative organic farming, there's a whole transition period and getting into new products that they know nothing about. And so there's an understandable and probably real moat, let's say, before that castle. And that's one of the reasons why it's not just sort of happening broad scale around the world. Things have to change in a pretty fundamental way. So this is the work we're doing in the foundation to create models and model farms. So we can actually bring farmers over and say, this is what we're talking about.
Yep. And how have the farmers responded so far to this?
Well, we're still in the development stage of proving all of this out. We're just now, we have our first 20 farms where we're going to deploy those 4 agroforest crops or trees, coffee, cacao, mulberry, and moringa. And it's taken us a long time to really plan and design how that's going to work, how that will integrate with the hens, what farm work needs to be done by the farmer in addition to what they're doing, what additional income will they get, how long do they have to wait, that sort of thing. One of the things that I guess I never knew in the beginning is that the natural habitat of the chicken is the forest. So there's something kind of elegant in a way about creating a forest for an animal that probably should have had one in the first place. We just never thought about that. But also structuring the farm area so there's enough space for free-range roaming that has access to sunlight, because hens need access to sun, so it's thinking about that. Coffee and cacao don't just grow up overnight. Those are 4 to 7 years. So in that model, the mulberry and moringa are there in the same spirit as we began Hilltribe Organics in the first place. That those are crops that can ultimately provide daily income, so that they can be harvested for their leaves. It's not like a fruit tree or so it has a certain kind of elegance. Coffee and cacao are obviously different. They have longer maturation, but so there'll be sort of 3 income streams, and later we'll get into other things about ground cover and other aspects. But it will take us years to really work out a model that works for the farmer and the farmer's family. We can't just come up with some model that seems interesting to us. Somebody has to do it. It has to work.
Yeah. The impact has to be proven.
And it has to be proven. So that work has to be done in the foundation.
Makes sense. I'm very curious now to understand a bit more about your personal philosophy when it comes to picking these different projects to get involved in. I'm seeing a pattern, a thread here. Right. How would you describe it, Richard? How you decided to get involved in such a meaningful way in these different projects and organizations?
Well, the central problem I've been sort of fixated on, I guess, for the last 15 years is using agriculture to address poverty in a sustainable way. And when I say sustainable, I mean economically sustainable. That's really been my driver. And organic agriculture was a vehicle in the beginning. I guess a second level overlay obsession has become how to prove that the most sustainable practices in the world can be implemented successfully and integrated into a program that maybe more than alleviates poverty and maybe can be more scalable than the model we began with. But we have to prove that in one place. So the Wawee Valley is hopefully the place where we can show that with first organic and then regenerative organic agriculture, you can make a life-changing improvement in the income and quality of life of small, poor farmers, and make another level of sustainability function at the same time, with a business model now that could go global as opposed to one that was, quite geographically narrow.
What would you say is the that difference that you see now that you feel would allow Wawee to go to a scale that you think would be even bigger than what Perfect Earth Foods has been able to achieve so far? It feels like there's something you see that's possible now.
Well, yes. Agriculture is long-term. And, all agricultural-based businesses, you have to have a long-term perspective. And Perfect Earth Foods, we've seen that. It's rice-based, and so we're producing noodles, et cetera, but we have to be integrated in farming and all those things. So in any new initiative that's agri-based, you have to think, 20, 30 years out. And fortunately, it seems to me that we're at a perfect inflection point. And I guess I had this view 10 years ago when I first started thinking about the next wave. not only just regenerative organic, but using regenerative organic as the agricultural vehicle to grow the healthiest foods in the world. So, as you know, believe, wellness is going to be front and center of the food business for the next 30 years or more. So knowing that, or foreseeing that, we felt that if we could bring together not only regenerative organic agriculture, but what I call the healthiest foods in the world. But when I say that, I'm talking about foods that have been validated over thousands of years.
Yes.
So, and I had that experience at a few levels. You know, I lived in Asia for 25 years. Not long after I came to Asia, I began to appreciate ginger. And learned that, and so did my family, my children. If you ask my children, I'll tell you, you know my daughter. If they're getting sick, you know, now today I think, you know, they're on their own, but I think they're still boiling ginger and taking ginger, and that if a cold is in formation, it will probably stop it, or at least significantly abated. And when we started the Hilltribe Organics model, the first 3 or 4 years, the hens are getting sick all the time, particularly in the rainy season. And I was having these professors and veterinarians, you know, come from universities, and they would say, they've got basically a cold, you know, it's the rainy season. Give them a big shot of turmeric, and that was what they prescribed. It wasn't we were organic, so we couldn't use antibiotics or anything of that nature. So the only remedies available to us were natural and without hesitation. They all said turmeric, so we thought, well, okay. That's working, but why do we give it to them when they're sick? Why don't we just give it to them every day? So that's what we did, and
it worked wonders for the chickens.
It worked wonders for the chickens, and their yield improved, and they got sick far less. So I went, okay, now I know 2 prime examples that I know of and believe in, where a plant material has very powerful health benefits that in one case should be used, or we did use for the improvement or building of the immune system on a daily basis, and the other at least medicinally, but probably daily would be even better. You know, I haven't even tried that, but you know, I probably should. Thinking about it now, why do I just give myself a super dose of ginger when I get sick? Why don't I just take it every day? I love ginger anyway. I love the taste. So that led me to study the healthiest foods in the world from around the world. And what I sort of discovered is that there are great examples in a number of sort of cultural verticals, if you will. Let's say in the Chinese culture, in the traditional Chinese medicine, if you go into the Indian culture, Ayurveda, if you go into the sort of other Indian culture in Latin America and in the Americas, you know, you get other things like, so you get ginger, you know, from the ginger, garlic, etc., from the Chinese. You get turmeric from the the Indians, every Indian child, I think, is getting some form of turmeric every day. And there's other examples there. And chia and moringa, would be two of the prime examples. The Mayans were using chia to promote long distance running, not as a sport, to connect their communities. People would run 200 or 300 miles without thinking about it, but chia enabled it. If you used sugar or something, they would have died probably. So, and we've been studying other things. So mulberry, is another part of that. Coffee and cacao, and there's a few. We'll continue to study, other candidates, to sort of come into that in that pool. And of course, they have to meet other tests, things that will grow in this climate and environment, and then further study whether they grow. They play nicely. Do they grow with other things? As many of those do, but some actually grow better on their own. And developing a system so that this model then would use regenerative organic or circular regenerative organic as this sort of delivery vehicle, and then the product portfolio would be developed from this family of products that we believe to be super healthy, each of which have some unique characteristics, with the idea that then together those things will have value not only individually as items, but together in more complex products. And so a lot of what the foundation will be doing then is taking those ideas and developing them.
Makes sense. And we've spoken about this before, now on this topic of wellness and these superfoods. How did you come to this view of perhaps food as medicine? What was it that led you along this path to where you are today with these projects you're engaging in?
Well, I think we just discovered that. I mean, the ginger and turmeric, I always believed it. And I'm sure my wife would say I'm somewhat extreme. Like I don't take any medicine. It's not. I'm not sort of like religiously, sort of opposed to it or something. Like if I really needed a medicine, and on occasion, I have taken the medicine. But fundamentally, I don't believe we need to take medicine. And I know from my own experience that there are many great medicines for many applications, and certainly I'm not as knowledgeable as, let's say, a TCM doctor, or Ayurveda doctor, so there's much more that I have to learn. But the basic principle I've been convinced of since childhood, and I'm reasonably healthy. I don't take medicine. I know so many people that take this and they take that and they take the other thing. Like, how do you even know how those things interact with each other? And if they're not naturally produced, I'm really skeptical about what those things do to your body in concert with other non-natural items. And I place a lot of faith in the belief that the tools were given to us thousands of years ago, and we just need to find them and use them in an intelligent way, grow them in a clean manner so that we don't neutralize them, process them with minimal processing so that we don't kill all the nutrients before they get to the consumer, where something's listed on the ingredient line, but it's all gone, right? Like it's not there. Or it's on the ingredient line, but it's it's formulated in some way that your body doesn't assimilate it.
Mm.
So that's the learning journey we're on, and we're kind of defining the players, that we'll work with, but we're open that there's probably others that we just haven't looked at yet. And we believe that many of those plants and trees and their primary product haven't been looked at as deeply as they could or should, and that there are secondary or theoretically secondary parts of those plants, et cetera, that might be extremely valuable and beneficial, but nobody ever bothered to look. So that's another thing, area that we're looking at and working on developing partnerships with universities, scientists, et cetera, to study a few things very deeply.
I would say that in my experience, at least in this space, that having gone deeper into the gut health space and realizing that actually perhaps a lot of these time-worn traditional insights, actually the science seems to be catching up to validate some of these things.
Yes.
For example, the benefits of some of these ingredients on, say, inflammation and lowering inflammation in the body. And to me, I see it as there's probably some empirical truth to a lot of these things that, if certain cultures have used them for many decades, if not centuries, there should be something there. And perhaps that's where, when the science and the research comes along to actually go deeper into it, realizing, yes, actually, now we understand the relationship of how this is actually benefiting the body. So I would say there's definitely a lot of value that perhaps the science is only just coming around to validate now.
Well, I completely agree. It's ironic in some ways, but so I think there'll be many discoveries, so to speak, in this area. Natural discoveries, not some new, sort of created set of molecules, but discovering, catching up, I think you could say, to what and why these things can do and do. But I think that understanding of it would be material. So I can tell you that when I get sick, I take ginger. I can't tell you exactly why it's happening.
But it works, it makes you feel better.
But I know it works. But I think somebody figuring out why that works
exactly
could lead to, new things and new applications, new understanding that would be valuable and could build upon, the sort of natural riches that, were given to us.
Absolutely. On the topic of the wellness, perhaps movement that's taking place now, what's your views about this? I remember you just mentioned that you see that there's probably tens of years ahead for this. What is it that's made it stick now? Why now?
Well, I think it's like cigarette smoking, right? Like, what is how many people need to die? What was the Bob Dylan's song? It's just like, how many roads? After a while, when lots of people in your family who were heavy smokers died, it's like, okay, maybe smoking isn't too good for us. And sadly, my grandfather died from lung cancer. I mean, and smoked.
I remember this crazy point. I think that at some point in history, doctors had prescribed cigarettes in certain cases.
And almost every movie that you can think about, even today, shows everybody and his brother smoking, even though maybe those actors don't actually smoke. You know, it's being paid for, I guess, and maybe theoretically artistic integrity, but because people did smoke, you know. So in the when I was growing up, it was something that every kid sort of aspired to. You know, it's like you get old enough to smoke. So I think with food and processed food, we're starting to get to that point. And alcohol, I mean, hello, alcohol can harm you. And sugar probably doesn't have quite the same, common sense understanding, but I think is getting there. And processing, what are the real nutrients we're getting from these foods? And this is somebody who spent a lot of years selling those products. So I say, not only did I become a social entrepreneur because that interested me, in some way I'm atoning for my sins. I enjoyed it during the time. It was, great sort of business engagement, building market share and competing with all these other brands, et cetera. But the bottom line is those were not healthy products. And so that's starting to become understood. Kennedy in the Trump administration is, taking a lot of stands on these things. Some of those things are right. I don't agree with everything he's doing, and I've got my questions about a number of the views on vaccines, but clearly processed foods are harmful. So the opportunity, in a way, creating an opportunity for us and our farmers, because we believe in that, organic isn't even good enough now, I think. That's what I say in terms of creating clean, healthy food, not only for our farmers and our families, but obviously for the people that we're selling to. So coming to understand these things is important, but I still think probably understanding among consumers is pretty low. I mean, organic is one thing, it's organic what? So which foods should we be eating? And, we're not talking about organic chocolate cake, we're talking about the best foods grown in the cleanest way. That's really, where we're getting to. And so I think there is a greater awareness of that, and
what we're putting into our bodies. We're becoming a lot more aware of what we're putting into our bodies.
Yes, and maybe not understanding what they do, but understanding maybe at the macro level that processed foods maybe not that good for us, and categorizing some sort of junk foods as being particularly bad, which of course they have a lot of sugar, but equally there's all kinds of other foods that have had their nutrients processed out of them, that may still have, chemical residues, and, and their nutrient density is probably low, and in many cases those nutrients aren't even getting assimilated into your body. So I think we have a long, long way to go to fully understand those things. But one of the most amazing things that has maybe ever happened in food or wellness is GLP-1. Something like 20% of Americans are using it in some way. 20% of Americans. I mean, that's bigger than the organic category. That's and losing huge amounts of weight.
Mm-hmm.
But more fundamentally, not feeling like having a drink. Not feeling like wanting to eat a snack. Regardless of, the mental exercise, like, I'd like a snack, but I know it's not good for me. They actually don't want it. So the impact on food categories is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. Now, what else is happening inside that person because of this drug? I don't know. And I will never find out because I will never take it. But it is already having an effect. Some of it might end up by being really harmful. Some of it might be not bad. Perhaps at a certain level, maybe some people will start maybe eating better. So on a macro level, I do think that's significantly increasing the conversation. Maybe also the confusion. But I just saw today, there was a post on the CNN site that there's a 6-part series on longevity. A reporter's done a 6-part series. So if that's happening, I mean, do you know any other news outlet that has done a 6-part thing on anything recently? And that's it says to me that there's a lot of interest. And I've read some of it, and I think some of it's quite good. Sort of challenging some of the sort of breakthroughs, but also talking about a lot of the basics, things that really could and do improve longevity. Basic things like sleep, exercise,
stress.
Well, stress, you and I have talked about. I mean, stress, the two bad boys are inflammation and anxiety in all disease. And those are really the ones that I'm particularly focused on, is those foods that will help, first of all, by not creating inflammation in the first place. Secondly, those foods that can help build our immune system and just create a healthier gut biome. Personally, I don't know what I can do about people's anxiety, except to point out that it makes inflammation a lot worse. And you can get sick just from anxiety. And so that could be the cause of your inflammation. Or you can have inflammation that gets exacerbated by anxiety. But basically, when you've got those two engines going, things aren't good.
Yes. So definitely the awareness has grown now. I'd say that knowing what we're eating, knowing the new developments that have happened, I think it's an exciting time for us to be in this space.
Totally, because it's, topical. And, the challenge or the opportunity will be really to come up with great products that are not just, sort of Band-Aids or greenwashing or wellness washing, whatever the term would be. The real stuff, and figuring out how to explain it well. Because I feel that the real challenge in all of this is it's not actually that simple. So to get people or help people understand is not easy.
Yep.
So I think that's a challenge and an opportunity to develop better and better and easier to understand, use, and benefit from.
How do we make it easier for people to do the right thing?
And ideally, they should feel it. I mean, experience it in some meaningful way that we can measure or feel and measure.
Absolutely.
Because just like greenwashing, there's wellness washing is probably prevalent. It's like there's all these things. Buy this. It's like, the more we learn, this is where science, I think. I think it's a great time to become a scientist or to be a scientist. If you sort of apply your skills in the right way. One of the things that I have seen very little talked about is bioavailability. So how do we know that the thing that you just sold me that looks pretty good on the front of the package and reads pretty well on the back of the package, including the ingredient line, will not just pass through me without a single gram being assimilated or doing anything. Now that is science. And understanding how that works. So, like turmeric is actually difficult to assimilate. And that's somewhat due to maybe the genome as well as the biome. Without, as it turns out, black pepper. When I first learned that, I thought that's amazing. But I had just seen a Costco somewhere with 50 feet of turmeric bottles or jars. I'm not sure whether any of those things had black pepper in it, or even whether those people studied or it's. So I think those are the things that we need to understand. We might see some wellness products that maybe actually are well conceived.
But does the science back it up?
Yeah, the science that whatever it is, the physiology. Is it really working? I can see that there's a lot of things that really seem like they will work. So I go back to. Even without black pepper, it worked like a charm with my hands. Now, maybe we need to further study how we can improve their assimilation. And that's actually one of the good things about having 35,000 hens is we can give them most of these things that we're growing. And I mean, we're not using them as lab rats, but we want to be thinking about these developments, not only from a human perspective, but also from an animal perspective. And obviously our physiology is different, but some things may not be so different. The principles of assimilation and maybe similar. Anyway, those are the kinds of things I'd like to see us learning. So we could make a wrong conclusion that Formula X is no good. Maybe it is actually good, but it's not.
Could be missing something.
Missing a trigger or a, or I don't know what it might be. Maybe the form or maybe the temperature it's simulated at something. Actually, how these things work in the body.
Now a word from our sponsor, Wellsprout. Wellsprout is a science-driven gut health-focused company providing gut health testing programs and analytics, as well as a 100% all-natural plant-based super greens powder, high in fiber and prebiotics with 0 synthetic additives. Wellsprout Super Blend helps time-strapped professionals care for their gut health and contains over 27 plant ingredients carefully selected and scientifically formulated to promote gut health and nurture a thriving gut microbiome. If you go to getwellsprout.com, that's GETwellsprout.com, you can claim the special offer of a free welcome kit and a 10% discount off any order with the promo code GUTInstinct. Full disclosure that I am a co-founder of Wellsprout, and my goal with the Gut Instinct podcast series is to raise awareness and bring relatable information on gut health and health-related issues and tools to the general public to bring our bodies and lives into greater alignment. I would love to now dive a little bit into your previous work experiences, Richard, and how that links to what you're doing today. Perhaps you could share a bit about that trajectory for you. What was it like working in these large corporations, and what was that like for you to take the journey to go into these different enterprises now that you started?
Well, I had a number of kind of experiences working in big companies, but I came to Singapore pretty early in my career, so a lot of it was running kind of big businesses in Asia from Singapore. And I was fortunate. I mean, at that time, obviously technology was a little different. So you didn't have video conferences, and when you had to go, they would either come here or you go there. But the reality was, I had quite a lot of freedom, and so those jobs felt pretty entrepreneurial to me. And we did a lot of entrepreneurial things. So much so that I have to say at that time, I really wasn't thinking about whether I was harming mankind. I was thinking more about gaining market share and outsmarting my competitor. And learned a lot also about consumer products, about business, about cultures, and how to work in various countries in Asia, about entrepreneurship, and about agriculture. The last 15 years I was with Del Monte, where that was purely agriculture-driven business, or largely agriculture-driven business. But even before that, at PepsiCo, I was working in Frito-Lay, where we started the potato, where the Atlantic potato industry in Korea. I brought actually the seeds in my pocket, which was all useful learning for, I guess, my second career, if you will. I had a short first career as a banker, so I guess this is my third career. Which I'm grateful, for those experiences and that learning. It took me a pretty long time to figure out how to deploy that and actually make the leap to become a social entrepreneur. But now it's been almost 15 years since I started really. I kind of decided at that time that I would become a social entrepreneur. So I guess the optimistic way is that the earlier careers were a learning platform to become a social entrepreneur. And that somehow I'll be forgiven for my sins.
I guess on that note, though, when you mentioned your time working in those corporates, perhaps it'll be interesting then to hear some of your thoughts on how the food industry is approaching health and wellness in general, and perhaps what could they be doing better?
Well, I remember making a presentation to the PepsiCo board in, I think, 1985, telling them in a pretty unpopular way that they were going to have to change. And I thought at that time the reckoning would come much faster, but I mean, at that point I recommended that they, this was the beverage board, that they get into healthy beverages, water, et cetera. And they did, but of course, the core was far larger. They had a lot of these other things, but yeah, even then, I could see that was coming. That these are not the healthiest products in the world, high sugar content, and almost when you think about the recent court cases about social media. Is it harmful when it's habit forming? Well, so let's see now, social media, cigarettes, and snacks and soft drinks aren't far behind. And maybe some bright spark could argue that it's not a habit. Maybe there's something more than that. But and I did see in those days some really kind of disturbing things, like the diet soft drinks supposedly is a benefit to people with weight problem. Those consumers tend to drink huge quantities. And so while there wasn't sugar in those things, artificial sweeteners are not the best thing for you, and all those things. And those people weren't really losing large amounts of weight by doing that. And of course, it's very difficult for them to be overweight. So now you have something that actually is helping people lose weight, and so something that actually works is going to have a profound change, already has had a pretty profound change. What other effects it has
needs to be seen,
to be determined.
Perhaps you could give us a bit of an insight into perhaps the prevailing mentality that you saw and the way those companies were thinking about perhaps the products, and also now what you saw at the time, there was a movement towards healthy food. How did they respond to that? What was the mindset and perspective to that?
At that point, I don't think these companies were in the minority. I think people were thinking about business is business, about making money, return on investment, employee welfare wasn't the number one concern, but if they were to address that, they would have said a healthy company is a growing company. And which is true, and that does provide opportunities for people, career opportunities, economic opportunities. And so I think the primary filter was growth, how to grow, where to grow, on what basis to grow. And still this was the era where, certainly the earlier part of when I was there, people were still smoking cigarettes and not really thinking about it. So there really was this kind of business prevailing view. And in Del Monte, in a company that was agriculture based, one of the key operations in Asia was in the Philippines, where Del Monte had the biggest pineapple plantation in the world. We never seriously talked about going organic. Even today, I think for large farming operations, I don't think they're thinking that way. I think they're still thinking, and will think until they have no choice to be thinking on the margin, maybe we'll experiment with that, or maybe we'll look at some alternatives, but, to stop using the things that we know work and expose ourselves to the pests or other things that could have a huge impact on the business. That's a long leap. Even the U.S., I think, recently approved some new use or I don't know, new use, some use of Roundup. Roundup is straight out poison. It just kills people. And the idea that in today's day and age, Roundup could be used in any capacity is just crazy. But as we discussed, wellness and actual consumer behavior is powerful. So the business people need to follow the market, ideally foresee the market, but definitely follow the market. And so if consumers develop an appreciation for eating clean and come to understand much better what that means, that could lead to change. I think the consumer may feel powerless, but on a scale basis, consumers are not powerless. If lots of people just don't want products that contain sugar. Mexico has maybe one of the best labeling policies in the world. Right on the front of every package is the sugar level. Certainly when that was introduced, it changed quite a lot of behavior. Today, maybe people have sort of gotten used to it and they don't look at it as much the same way anymore. But if you become attuned to sugar being a problem, right there on the front of every package is how much sugar is in it. And I think there's some discussion that Kennedy is trying to promulgate in the U.S. about maybe stricter or more consumer informing packaging requirements. And frankly, I think that would be a good thing if done well. It wasn't easy for Mexico to pass that and implement it.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I've had some conversations where it was suggested that perhaps as customers start becoming more aware, that perhaps that's when the change happens, when the market starts to shift, then the businesses need to react as well. In your point of view, where do you think the change will come from? Is it from the consumers, or could there be other ways that we could be eating healthier and forming better habits around all this?
I think you and I and everybody in the wellness industry has an opportunity and also an obligation, to not just try and sell our products, but to inform consumers. Historically, most products, most companies, most people are pitching their products in a way that will promote sales and consumption, not really to promote learning that might have a risk. But I think if you're in wellness, we should be trying to inform consumers as best we can in as clear a way as we can, recognizing that there's a whole lot of messages out there, and at a certain point, consumers maybe switch off and you just go, I don't know what to believe.
Exactly. There's so much noise.
And there's so much now, maybe not even real communication, maybe bot generated or AI generated stuff coming at you, what to believe, what to trust. I do think there's an opportunity because of that, for entrepreneurs, like maybe not it could be doctors, or doctors, or maybe professional wellness coaches or nutritionists, because that has its own risks that maybe people could be recommending the wrong things. But I think people will be looking for learning.
Credible voices.
Credible voices. I think that's part of what's made influencers so important over the last, 10 or 20 years, certainly the last 10 years. They're powerful and influential because people, I think, don't feel like they can trust the news or even producers to get the right knowledge. Now, that's a little dodgy since many of those influencers are being paid by those people. But I hope there'll be a generation of ethical influencers and professionals that can actually help people with better knowledge than they had before. And then the optimist view of AI is that maybe it will help you filter through all the trash to learn some things that maybe seem, with enough repetition, to be true, or to be some guideposts or foundational learning that can help you. Because ultimately we need consumers to start to understand really what they can do themselves to achieve wellness.
Yeah, exactly. The way I think about it is how every person's gut microbiome is quite unique. And in that sense, perhaps what one person needs is never the same as what another person needs. So perhaps developing that toolkit to actually make sense of the information, be able to understand what works for me, and also not to necessarily take it wholesale. Great that it works for some people that are sharing some messages online, but how do we make sure that that actually applies to me? So being able to figure out what is signal from noise is going to become even more important, I think, as we go forward.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it is true that when you come down to health and wellness, what we all really need is the me diet or the you diet. Because your genome, in combination with your biome, is unique. Now, how unique is hard to know. So for sure, you have a unique biome genome combination. And then you have to remember that an individual is an individual. They're not a walking hospital. Like, how are they supposed to navigate all this stuff? So I think ultimately that might be something possible if we had a reliable way to understand our uniquenesses. And I could imagine, I've been thinking about this for some time. Maybe there could be some filters that filter out the harmful triggers. That, like, maybe all you need to really worry about is that you've got this thing that might impact 3 things out of 100 or 1,000. So, watch out for those, but you don't need to worry that everything you try that seems logical won't work for you. But I had a perfect example of that. I had people telling me, steel cut oats are like the best thing going, and you should be eating steel cut oats. And they just upset me. I couldn't do it. They actually made me ill. I don't know why. I mean, even as a child, I liked oatmeal. And I was sort of positively excited about, steel cut oatmeal, this is going to be really good. Maybe I'll have that every morning, and that will be a great start to my day. No, not for me. So there will be things like that, but I'm more concerned that people understand the basics and the actions they can and should take, even though possibly some of them might not work for them. It wasn't wrong to try. And this is why I think maybe personal nutritionists and advances in testing, filtering, simple ones, could be very beneficial and could be possible.
Exactly.
But testing, I mean, for me, is a real hot button, because the cost of testing is crazy. So we're producing the products. We'd actually like to know all the time, what the polyphenol level is in that egg. At $6,000 or $8,000 a pop, I can't afford to ever know. So I think not only from the consumer perspective, but also from the producer perspective, one of the ways I would love to see science applied is really thinking hard about cost-effective ways for producers to test, both at the farm level and at the production level, and for consumers maybe not to test the products they're going to consume, but to test their body and how it's reacting to a diet.
Exactly. Taking it back to that shift you made, going from working in large companies to becoming an entrepreneur, what was the switch like for you? How have you found the main differences, perhaps, of what it was like working in a large company compared to now as a social entrepreneur?
Well, I have a lot less resources. So you have to be more resourceful. But I guess I would say on an overall level, I always liked being an entrepreneur, and I was fortunate to be pretty entrepreneurial in big companies. And if I hadn't been able to do that, I wouldn't have stayed. I never wanted to be in headquarters. I wanted to be, out where I could run things pretty freely. But becoming a social entrepreneur, it was transformational for me. I had been thinking about it for a long time, and finally I did it. As I sort of tricked myself into doing it, maybe on purpose, I don't know. But it's rewarding in many levels. When you work in a small company, you have a small number of people. You're highly dependent on each other in that environment. But I find the alignment of purpose quite motivating to everyone. And clarity of purpose also, I think, is also effective. And it's particularly important because they know they're not getting the best compensation. We try and do special things, like give everybody lunch, and treat people as fairly as possible, and follow the most exacting regulatory things to make sure that we have, whether it's safety or medical care, those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, we're still not paying great wages, but our people have stayed with us for a long time. So I still have a number of people that have been with me since the beginning, since the first day. So that's gratifying. It's also quite efficient because you kind of know how you all think, and you know kind of where you're wanting to go. So when you're talking about a change or a program or a project, it's not like I have to bring you completely on board and explain to you why that would be. You kind of already
On the same
know
page.
that why we should be doing that, as well as maybe have some ideas how we could do it better, and feel free to say it, which in big companies a lot of times you don't do. Right? You're like, all these people have thought about this for a long time, so why should I have a better idea than they do? But I think in a company or companies like ours, it's expected of them, and I think that's motivating to them as well. So I think motivation is, and the sense of purpose is right at the core of wellness. So if you're doing a wellness survey of your people, isn't one of the key questions you want to know is, are you happy? Are you motivated? You probably also want to know, do you feel fairly treated? And maybe along the way you want to know is, how do you feel? I mean, physically, how do you feel? Well, do you feel energized?
Yes, that's key.
So I believe that energy is the currency of life. And we talk about wellness. Its output is energy. It's directed against purpose. And if your energy is wanting, your chance of achieving purpose is in question, as well as your happiness. So, and you can feel energy. That's one. Yeah, I want a great testing device so I can know what the, protein level of something is, something I can't see or tell by looking at it. Actually, that employee survey thing, I already know the answer. I can feel their energy. I don't need a watch or a device to tell that. And when you're in a good company and you sit around the table and talk or something, have a meeting or something like that, and you leave, you can feel whether that was, first of all, a good company, then maybe secondly, a good discussion. Without measuring anything or anybody saying anything, you physically are receiving that energy. And if you're receiving it, you're probably also giving it. And I think that's what we want.
Connecting the energy to the meaning and purpose.
But feeling the energy, like, when that thing, it's Monday, I'm going to have to get up and go to that place.
It's probably a clue that might not be the most aligned thing to be doing.
So you don't have to go out and say, like, what is my energy reading? You don't need to know.
Interesting. To connect it back to that entrepreneurship topic, perhaps when you made that jump, you talked about how you had done that project, which eventually became Hilltribe Organics, and how you had looked at the project and felt that it's something you wanted to actually keep going. You didn't want it to just be a one-off thing. Perhaps for people in the audience who are actually thinking about entrepreneurship, could you share a bit about what went through your mind? How did you finally make the decision to take the leap to go into social entrepreneurship? And what would your advice be to others who are considering entrepreneurship?
Well, by the time I did that, it took me very little time to decide to do it. But I had worked a long time. So it actually for me, it went back to some discussions I remember having with people when I was like in my 40s or early 50s, and people go, "Oh, it'd be really great to retire." And it was like, that doesn't feel like it would be great. Like, what would be great about it? I just remember feeling differently. I was with a group of people, and they were actively saying, it would be really good to retire. And I don't think so. And I was trying to think why I felt that. I said, well, some people talk about, well, I could play golf all the time. Oh, my golf's not very good. I don't even really enjoy golf. I like tennis and sport. Anyway, playing golf wasn't motivating to me. Going to see, I could travel. I could go see a lot of places. I have been a lot of places. Travel is not really motivating to me. Travel is something I need to do, but I hardly ever go anywhere just to see a new place. I would go to a place to start a new branch of our company or something, and enjoy the place when I'm there. But just, there are a lot of people, they go, oh, I'll take cruises, I'll do these things. No interest, I could feel that inside, like I'm hearing this and I'm going flatline. And the more I thought about it, but what might be interesting is to start a new business solving an even harder problem than problems I've solved before with businesses without any interference, and maybe just working with friends or partners or allies. That's starting to be pretty good. And then when we started Hilltribe Organics, I brought students back. They weren't students; they were these kids. Young people in their 20s, who were excited about the idea.
Yeah.
So again, I've always liked having young people involved in the business because they're a lot closer to the age of the consumer we're going to target, and they often have a lot more passion or industry than an older person for what we're doing. If you survey the population, who's interested in sustainability, whatever it is, the younger people will raise their hand a lot sooner than the older people. And they are the young people that are thinking about like, what kind of things are on my mind and I'm worried about. Okay, yes, longevity, obviously older people would be an interesting part of that, but in terms of new ideas, et cetera, I like having young people, not like, in this case, there were people that had worked some, but so they had some idea of work, but they didn't have a lot of preconceived notions, and they were excited. So I've always believed in that idea of having a small team of passionate people can do a lot, and sometimes more than a bigger team. And now, with AI, I think, so coming back to your point about what I would say to young entrepreneurs, I think this is the new age of entrepreneurship. In fact, for a lot of people, they'll need to be an entrepreneur. Because the jobs that young people used to do will be done by AI. On the other hand, young people will have powerful tools in their hands to do things at a young age that were never possible before. So I just see that there'll be an explosion in the number of companies, in particular small companies, in the future, in the near future.
I would say in my personal experience, my personal entrepreneurship experience, it's amazing the tools that are available to us now. I really resonate with what you say on that golden age of entrepreneurship perhaps coming upon us now.
Yeah. And so you have to really question, I do anyway, it's like, well, I've been thinking about putting up a school in the valley. I've just been thinking, it's really crazy that even if they have the money to commute 3 or 4 hours, or to physically move away from your family to go to high school, doesn't really make sense. So I've been thinking about putting up a school, but I thought if I put up a school, I won't copy that curriculum. So I think it would be interesting to think, if you were setting up a high school today, what would it look like? Exactly.
Such different skills needed now.
I think the skills are incredibly different. And the teachers would have to be incredibly different. And probably you wouldn't need that many teachers. But anyway.
That'll be perhaps a topic for another time for us to dive into, when perhaps the next foundation or the next organization you'll be setting up there. And for our final question, if you could share a final word or phrase that sticks in your mind that summarizes the discussion we've had today, perhaps a parting thought that you'd like to leave with our audience. This is something we ask to all our guests that come on the show. What would it be?
Well, my vision is to connect small farming communities with consumers around the world. And in the process, change everybody's life, as well as the environment, at least where those farmers are. And I always believed it was possible, but I believe it more today than ever.
I love that optimism. And I hope it's not going to be just optimism, but that we'll make it a reality too.
Well, I always believe in never giving up. So having a clear vision and never giving up, somewhere along the way you'll figure it out.
With lots of energy.
Yes, with lots of energy. That's what you're needed for.
Exactly.
And that's what your team needs it for. And they have to believe. If they think your mission is nonsense, you're not going far.
Yeah, probably won't be going on that journey. Well, here's to energy and purpose. Thank you so much for joining us today, Richard.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and learn more about us at getwellsprout.com.